Hey there, I want to welcome you to the 13 Steps to Riches series. This video is going to be the start of a brand new in-depth playlist series in which we'll dive into one of the biggest successful books of all time in the personal development space that has made the biggest impact to me personally and to millions of people around the world. And that very book I'm talking about is called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Here's some intriguing facts about it. Originally, the book was published in 1937 and surprisingly by the latest record in 2015, Think and Grow Rich has sold over 100 million copies worldwide. How this book was created is quite fascinating. It was created by a man named Napoleon Hill who interviewed and studied the habits of more than 500 of the richest men and women in the early 19th century, many of them who started life in poverty with little education or influence. It took Hill over 20 years to compile all the knowledge and wisdom from these interviews into a book containing 13 main principles of how anyone can change his or her way of thinking and become rich. Among these men are many historical famous figures such as Henry Ford, Theodore Roosevelt, John D. Rockefeller, Thomas Edison, Wilbur Wright, and many more. Almost every successful entrepreneur in today's modern age has been impacted from this book. And since this book contains so much powerful principles, I've noticed there's a common issue for many first-time readers finding themselves not completely understanding a couple of the important chapters from the book. So that is why I'm creating this 13 Steps to Riches series, dissecting each principle, aka each chapter, into a fun, simple format to help you visually learn the important key lessons that Napoleon Hill conveys. So, without further delay, let's begin. Before we dive into first steps to riches, which will be in the next video, Hill demonstrates the power of thoughts and how it has the power to shape your life, and in this chapter it sets itself as the foundation of the book. One of the greatest strengths of this book that I've always appreciated was how Hill used real life stories with the lessons. Let's take a look how the power of thought comes into play. There's a story about a man named Darby who became one of the most successful insurance salesmen in the country, and he used to share a powerful life experience he had with the gold rush back when it was booming. He went there with his uncle, and after weeks of labor, they suddenly struck gold in the midst of their mining. In the beginning, things looked great. It was so successful they brought a drill, and then afterwards something unexpected happened. There seemed to be no more gold left as they continued to mine further into the ground, and they continued to drill on, desperately trying to pick up any gold, but unfortunately there was no sign of it. At the end, they finally decided there was no use of trying to mine anymore, and so they quit. They sold the machinery to a junk man for a few $100s and took the train back home. But here's where the story gets interesting. The junk man who bought the machinery called in a mining engineer to look at the mine and do a little investigation. An astonishing discovery was made by the hired engineer that the project had failed because the owners were not familiar with fault lines. And even more surprising was his calculations showed that the gold would be found just 3 feet away from where Darby's had stopped drilling. And that is exactly where they found all the hidden abundance of gold. The junk man took millions of dollars of gold in from the mine, all because he knew well enough to seek expert counsel before giving up. Now, let's observe what happened from this story. Napoleon Hill points out that Darby and his uncle thought there was no gold left, so they thought there was no use to continue on and gave up. On the other hand, the junk man thought about not giving up on the abandoned project, went the extra miles, and at the end reaped success. Hill demonstrates success comes to those who are success conscious. One of the common causes of failure is the habit of quitting when one is overtaken by temporary defeat. In fact, one of the main weaknesses of mankind is the average person's familiarity to the word impossible. To add to this lesson, the 21st Century Revised version of Think and Grow Rich provides a modern example about Steven Spielberg, one of the all-time greatest motion pictures directors. There's a funny story in the movie industry how Steven actually broke into Universal Studio. Before he was famous or anything, Steven took a Universal Studios tour, which enables visitors to take a good look inside at the movie business. Steven somehow snuck off from the tour group and hid until the tour ended. When he left, at the end of the day, he said a few friendly words to the gate guard. Afterwards, day after day, he went back into the studio for 3 months. He walked past the guards, they waved at him, and he waved back. What's funny is he always wore a suit and carried a briefcase, letting the guards assume he was one of the students with a summer job in the studio. He got to the point of becoming friends with the directors, writers, and editors. He even got to become friends with the head of the production of Universal Studios' television arm, and one day he got to show the director his college film project, which impressed him so much that he placed Steven under contract with the studio. Over the next few years, Steven directed several movies including the popular Indiana Jones series, Jaws, and later directed Jurassic Park, which became a hit at the time as one of the most successful movies in history. And what we just saw with Steven Spielberg becoming a movie director dominated his thoughts so much that he went beyond what others would do, sneaking into guarded buildings to get the chance to become friends with the directors. Remember this lesson: in order to achieve something great, your thoughts have a great effect on your actions and habits, which ultimately has an effect on your outcome. This is why it's important to change our minds from failure consciousness to success consciousness. So before we continue to the next chapters, question for you. Assuming wealth is what you want to accomplish, are you determined enough and willing to try harder to achieve it no matter what and how many times you'll face adversities? Think about that. Up next, stay tuned for the next video that will start with the first step to riches, which is desire, the starting point of all achievements.